Hey guys, it's Will and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to make a valet tray. This is something that I've been asked about a couple times and I enjoy making, so I thought why not show you how. So the pattern is actually super simple, which is what you can see me cutting out at the moment, and it's super simple. It's whatever shape you want it to be is the pattern. It's nothing particularly special. This one's going to be a square valet tray, and the dimensions will come later. I'll let you watch and see what happens. But the first thing we do is we cut out the outside and the inside. For this particular one, the inside is going to be goat, which is what you can see me cutting out at the moment, and the outside is going to be a I think this one's an Italian shoulder. Actually, I don't quite remember the tannery that it comes from, but it doesn't really matter. The next thing I'm going to cut out is the foam. So there's two parts of the there's three parts to the sandwich. There's the outside, there's the inside, and there's the sandwich filler in the middle. And the sandwich filler has two parts to it. So it's got this bonded leather that you can see me cutting out at the moment, but it's also got a foam. So you use the bonded leather underneath as a way to stiffen up the tray part itself and give it some more structure. Sorry, my cat's coming to say hi. And then you've got the foam on top of that, which gives it more of a luxurious feel, if you like. It works really nicely. So you can see me just gluing together the two layers, the bonded leather and the foam. It's just a really simple, I think it's a 2 or 3 mil foam just from the hobby shop, which I'm using in this. You can use pretty much anything, but the stiffer the base, so in this case the bonded leather, so if you use like a plastic for instance, you'd have a really stiff valet tray. I prefer a slightly softer one personally, but that's the great thing about leathercraft, is you can make whatever you like. So the gap between the sandwich filler in the middle and the border, if you like, it's a 2 inch, so 5 centimeter gap, and that works for basically everything actually. So in this case it's going to be a square in the middle, a 2 inch gap, and then another square. A few seconds ago you saw me sanding the foam, and that's to give it a really nice curve as you push the leather down around it. You don't actually need to put a stitching line stitching sort of guideline down like you normally would with this, because you're pushing your pricking iron right up against that filler material, so you don't really need a line. Something that's important to note for the stitching, however, is you punch the stitching holes for the center raised bit from the inside, but as you can see here, you actually punch the stitching line for the outside from the back, and that's because the back's actually going to be the front when you stitch the corners together and it bends up. So you get a much nicer finish if you stitch it from the back side and then the front side. So that's a really important part for the stitching, and that's why I'm using the ruler. You want it to be down exactly the same line coming out of that middle square, and that's because those stitching holes are going to be what you use to stitch to bring the corners up into the traditional valet tray appearance. Now you might be wondering why I'm putting a crocodile bit in the middle. I put my initials or my logo, I can't remember which one, on the outside, and then I decided actually I didn't like the way it looked, so instead of remaking the entire thing, I decided to put a little panel on top with my initials and my logo, just to make life a little bit easier for myself. So now I've stitched that part on, and trimming down the stitching, trimming down the thread ends on the back, and now I'm stitching around the raised bit on in the middle. I wish stitching was actually this fast, but it's however not. And then you can see here that I'm actually stitching what looks like the back, but it's going to be the side / front when you bring up the edges. Putting a little bit of white glue in those holes. I do this for all of the stitching, I just don't film it all the time, but it's important when it finishes in the corner, because there's going to be quite a lot of tension in that corner when you bring up that edge. Now you might be asking yourself why I don't paint it right at the end. That's because I'm going to be doing an overstitch on the corner, so it'd be physically impossible to do to paint the edge, because I'd have to paint over that stitch, which would look awful. When you're stitching the corners together, you need to put a lot of pressure, so it's actually really important to put lots of wax onto your thread and to heat it up into the thread to strengthen it, because you're pulling really tight in order to make that corner as clean as you can. We can see just how much effort I'm putting into pulling that thread at the end, just to give it as tighter corner as I can. You'll see it here just as I do the overstitch. I've edited quite a lot out, but I'm pulling this for probably 4 or 5 seconds because there's so much force. Well, I haven't edited it out apparently. There's a huge amount of force that leather's trying to pull itself apart, because it doesn't like being bent in that way. It will settle, it'll break itself in, but when you're initially doing it, and that's also why I'm putting some white glue on the thread there, because it's trying to pull itself out. So a little bit of white glue, and then you pull that thread through, and then it really effectively sticks into that hole. So I'm pulling that thread through there, and it will really snugly sit everything together. I've done it on both sides, I just didn't need to show both sides. And then it's a case of snipping those threads as close as you can, a little bit of white glue on the awl, and then poking it back through. Now obviously I haven't put together a pattern for this, because you don't really need to. Just make a square and then cut 2 inches off the square, and that's the size of your lining, your sandwich filling in the middle, and that's it. It's not a complicated thing, but you can do so much with it aesthetically. But thank you guys so much for watching. I've really enjoyed making this for you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Have a wonderful day.